rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. Presidential candidate Donald Trump has sparked outrage because of his proposal to build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico to prevent illegal immigration and drugs. It's shocking that anyone would oppose stopping people from entering the U.S. illegally and drug trafficking. Nevertheless, a company credited with building the defense barrier that has reduced Israel's illegal immigration to almost zero has signaled its interest in helping construct Trump's proposed border wall. McGow Security Systems specializes in engineering smart fences, which are situated with video cameras, ground sensors, and motion detector monitoring. The company has helped construct security barriers along Egypt and Jordan and has contracts to do the same in Kenya, Somalia, and other African countries under threat from violent organizations. It's obvious that if we can't defend our borders, we no longer have a country. However, some want nations to disappear and to merge into one world government through a process called globalism. In case you do not know, the Bible prophesies the emergence of just such a one world government in the times just ahead, and it's not going to turn out good. Well, welcome once again to End of the Age. We want to talk to you about quite a number of things today, but there's one article in particular that caught my mind. The article came out in the Israel National News the 1st of August, just 2 or 3 days ago, and it's entitled, Pope Equates Capitalism with Terrorism. As soon as I saw the title, I froze in place. Do what? Pope Francis equates capitalism with terrorism? Hey, the United States is a capitalist country. Does that mean we're a terrorist country? Pretty shocking thing to imply, but nevertheless, let's look at the article. In an interview on his flight back from World Youth Day in Poland, where he also visited the Auschwitz death camp, Pope Francis related to the issues of terrorism and capitalism in the world today, even implying a comparison between the two, as reported by NBC News. He said that it is unfair to equate Islam with terrorism, claiming that every group has its extremist factions. I don't like to talk about Islamic violence. Not all Muslims are violent. In every religion, there are small groups of fundamentalists. Oh, he really likes to talk about those fundamentalists. You know, a fundamentalist is a person who believes there is such a thing as absolute truth. In other words, they would believe the Bible's true, or they believe that the Quran is true. Well, if the Quran were true, we should believe it's true. It's not true. If the Bible is true, we should believe it's true. And yes, it is true. Nevertheless, Pope Francis is condemning those fundamentalists. He went on to say, we Catholics have them too, fundamentalists he's talking about. So it's not fair to identify Islam with violence and terrorism. It's not fair, and it's not true. Now I want to pause there for just a moment. Now, what is going on here? If you had to name the religion of the last 500 terrorists that has perpetrated attacks over the last 8-10 years, if you had one guess, would you guess Oh, he's a capitalist? Or he's a Catholic? Or he's a Protestant? No. Hey, it's obvious what all of us would guess. He probably said Allahu Akbar just before he pulled the trigger or pushed the button on the bomb. Because almost every terrorist over the last 10, 15 years has been Islamic. Now, of course, there are Islamic people that would not do that. But to try to say that actually there's just as many Catholics that are terrorists or just as many Christians that are terrorists. And then he goes on to condemn capitalism more than Islamism. This is what is just astounding. I mean, this man's 79. Is he turning senile? This is ridiculous. Nevertheless, let me tell you the rest of the story. Further attempting to downplay a connection between Islam and terrorism, the Pope implied that capitalism, if anything, is a type of terrorism. So he's not willing to equate Islam with terrorism, but he's happy to call capitalism terrorism. Free enterprise, well, that denotes freedom. Well, freedom is certainly terrorism, isn't it? I mean, anything you can't control, you have to condemn it as terrorism because you can't control it, and that's a very scary thing if I can't control it. Well, anyway, the article goes on to say, when you place at the center of the world economy the god of money, that's terrorism against all humanity. Now, let's pause. The Bible does say the love of money is the root of all evil. And if you make a god out of anything, whether it's money, whether it's materialism, whether it's music, whether it's possessions, whether it's education, no matter what you put on the throne of your life other than God himself, of course, then that would be idolatry. However, to say that capitalism, which simply believes in free enterprise, that is terrorism, is absolutely bordering on insanity. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit to ever be elected Pope. Now, before he was elected, many had feared a Jesuit Pope because Jesuits have been known to infiltrate and even overthrow governments. So in all the 500 years that the Jesuits existed as one of the strongest factions of Catholicism, the prelates of the Catholic Church had always shied away from electing a Jesuit to become Pope. Now, the question is, why? Well, Jesuits, for one reason, are strong proponents of a belief system called liberation theology. And liberation theology is a belief that if Jesus Christ were on earth today, he would be a Marxist. I mean, this is what they teach. I've read a stack of books on liberation theology. I know exactly what I'm talking about. They believe if Jesus were here today, he would go pick up a gun, rob people who have material things, and go give it to poor. He would be a modern day Robin Hood. And that's, of course, what socialism is. Socialism is holding a gun to people's heads and say, give me your money, I'm going to go give it to someone else. Oh, I'll take a little bit of a service fee along the way. I mean, that's what the government does. The government holds a gun to your head and says, you must pay your taxes, we will put you in jail. And we're going to give that to whoever we want to give it to. You see, our founding fathers made that unconstitutional, to take what one person earned and give it to another person who didn't earn it. It has been said, when one man gets something he didn't earn, another man earns something he didn't get. We call that socialism. Now today, the new term for socialism is progressivism. Now, none other than Senator Sanders said, "Oh, I'm a socialist." Hillary Clinton said, "I'm a progressive." Tell me the difference. Wasserman was on an interview back before she was exposed by the emails that surfaced saying that she was rigging everything so Hillary Clinton would win the nomination. Back before that, she was on an interview, and one of the media persons hit her with a question. "Could you tell us the difference between the Democratic Party and socialism?" Wasserman started stammering. I mean, it was almost embarrassing. It was shocking. She never could do it. You know why? There is no difference. When you see the term progressive, just replace it with the term socialist and you'll be able to understand it right. Of course Hillary Clinton is a socialist. Of course Barack Obama is a socialist. I don't even think they would deny it. Remember when Joe the plumber, back when Mr. Obama was running for president before his election, said, "Well, do you believe in wealth redistribution?" And Obama said, "Well, I do believe we need to share the wealth." Now, all of us want things to be fair. At least we should want things to be fair. Anyone who is a Christian believes things should be fair. And we also want to be able to help others as we feel that we want to and should. Do we want to feel like the government can hold a gun to our head and take our money and go hand it to somebody that won't work? No, we don't like that. Now, the reason I bring this up is because this Pope is a Jesuit, and the Jesuits' liberation theology is a very powerful belief system within the Jesuits, especially in South America. That's when they were the strongest. And Pope Francis was the Secretary General of the Jesuits in Argentina from 1973 to 1979, at the height of the time that liberation theology was being embraced by the Jesuits. So let's get this picture. Liberation theology was sweeping through South America. For example, in Nicaragua, many of the Roman Catholic priests, the Jesuits, cast aside their clerical collars and picked up machine guns. They went in and they overthrew the government of Nicaragua. They called themselves the Sandinistas. Now they love communists, and you can say Marxist or communist, it's the same thing. Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. So communists like to go under a different name to deceive the people. So they call themselves Sandinistas. Why did they call themselves that? Well, because in Nicaragua, they had a hero called Sandano. He lived way back in the early 1900s, and all of the Nicaraguan people saw him as a leader and a liberator, and so they loved him. So the communists come along and say, "Hey, let's kidnap this identity of Sandano, and let's attach our name to it." So what they did, they combined Sandano with communists, and they called themselves Sandinistas. That's what they did. You'll remember that Oliver North tried to stop communism from taking over Nicaragua, and he got caught diverting arms down there to help those who were trying to keep the Catholics from overthrowing their government and installing a communist government. Now, if you don't believe what I'm telling you, do your homework. Look up Sandinistas. Read the history of how the Jesuit priest laid aside their clerical collar, picked up machine guns. Another person who did this was the man who took over Haiti, Aristide. He was a Catholic priest, but he became a revolutionary and ended up being the head of Haiti for a while. That was another move under liberation theology. Well, now, here we are today, and many people, there's actually a movement called Black Liberation Theology. Again, it's communist. It's under a different name in order to fool the people, but nevertheless, that is what's happening. Okay, now, let's bring this back to Pope Francis, because he is a bitter enemy of capitalism and free enterprise. He hates free enterprise. He takes a strong swipe at it every chance he gets. And instead he calls socialism social justice. I'm sure you've heard the term, because the Democratic Party is now using the term social justice a lot. And some of the establishment Republicans, there's two kinds of Republicans and establishment Republicans. That's the reason there's such a conflict going on inside the Republican Party right now, because many of the establishment Republicans also have become believers in wealth redistribution and one world government. That's where everything's going right now. That's the reason there is such a clash right now between them and Donald Trump. You see, the establishment people don't want to defend our borders. They want to open the borders up, everybody just come pouring in. That's the way we've got 12 million illegal aliens in this country right now, because Democrats, most Democrats, and a good portion of Republicans believe that we're in the process of a new world order. They believe that globalism really took off back when the Berlin Wall came down, and we entered into a time of new world order when borders should no longer be defended. We need to have a world without borders. So that's what they believe, and that's the reason when Donald Trump says we're going to build a wall to keep this illegal immigration out, they go into such conniption fits, because they believe that the nation state is the problem, not the answer. So what they have done, they have said, look, let's get rid of nations, and let's pressure all the nations to get rid of their armies. Now in Europe, they're doing this right now. The nations that belong to the European Union, after London voted to get out of the European Union, France and Germany proposed that all the nations come together, dissolve their national armies, and have one European Union army. Well, ultimately, the goal is for all the nations of the world, including the United States of America, to get rid of their armies, and let's have one global army. Now, the theory is, if you get rid of all the armies, you'll have no more war. If you only have one army under the United Nations administration, then when there's a conflict among states, they can come before the UN Security Council, they can debate their issue there, the UN Security Council will vote, and everybody agrees to abide by the vote. If they don't want to abide by it, tough luck. You have to. There's no army left within your borders. And since we only have one army left under the control of the one world government, it's not going to fight with itself. Therefore, we're not going to have any more war. Now, there's one haunting problem here, though. If this all comes to pass, and it's going to come to pass to a great degree, if it all comes to pass, I wonder what would happen if a guy like an Adolf Hitler somehow finagled his way into power and got control of the only army that's left. Then that means he could use his power to stamp out all resistance. You may be thinking right now, yeah, but that would never happen. Well, beg to differ with you. I've got inside information. It's going to happen. The Bible very clearly states that there's a one world government coming, and when it comes, a very powerful leader will gain control of it, called the Antichrist. And the Bible says that he is going to dominate the world, and he's going to force the whole world to buy into his political and religious philosophies. The Bible says that all on earth will worship the beast except those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. So that's where we are right now, and that's what's going on right now. And that's the reason when I saw this article, Pope equates capitalism with terrorism. I mean, you know, if you've got an enemy, make him look horrible. Say something like he's unfit or he's a terrorist. Call him a name. The truth of the matter is the people who want to force us to redistribute our wealth, they're the terrorists. Now, let's ask one final question before I move to take your phone calls. Here's the question. Everybody likes to say, the Marxists at least like to say, if Jesus were here today, he would be a Marxist. He would take from those that have, give to those that have not. But is that really true? What does the Bible teach about that? It does not teach that Jesus would be a Marxist, I promise you. Here's what it does teach. Remember the parable of the Bible that Jesus himself taught about a certain husbandman that was going on a journey. He called 3 of his servants to him, and he gave each of them a talent. We don't know exactly how much a talent was, but it was a good amount of money that they were to work with until he got back, and then they were to deliver him their returns. So he came back a few years later, and he came to the man who had given 1 talent to, and his talent had gained 9 more, so that he had 10, and he presented them to his master, and the master was delighted. He said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord that was prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Now, this was Jesus telling this parable, and he was couching it now in spiritual terms. Then he went to another man, and his had gained 5. He hadn't done as well as the one who had gained 10, but his had gained 5, and he presented those to his master. And what did the master say? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of the Lord. And he actually said to the man who gained 10, in my kingdom you'll be ruler over 10 cities. You've shown yourself to have the ability and the ambition to do that. He said to the man who gained 5, you'll be a ruler over 5 cities. Both of them were happy. Then he came to the man who was afraid. He had buried his talent in the backyard. So when his master came, he said, just a minute, I've got your talent for you. He went out back in the backyard, dug it up, and said, here it is. I knew you were an austere man, reaping where you did not sow, and I was afraid. So I was really careful to guard your talent for you while you were gone. Here it is. And the master was livid with anger. He said, you could at least put it in the bank and let it draw interest. And then he said, bind this wicked and slothful servant and cast him into outer darkness where there's weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. Does that sound like capitalism or like socialism to you? Certainly doesn't, does it? It sounds like take a risk, take a chance, do something, multiply your abilities. Now, let's look at another scripture in the Bible, because this is an important point. Many people today are saying that if you're going to be truly Christian, you would be a socialist. No, you wouldn't. You'll end up cast into outer darkness if you're a socialist. So, in fact, what does the scripture say? This comes from 2 Thessalonians chapter number 3, verse 10. For even when we were with you, this is the Apostle Paul speaking, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. Well, wouldn't you be something if you were running a political platform today, running for president, and say, under my administration, people that don't work don't eat? Well, that's just what the Bible teaches. I'm sure that would really upset people, especially today when food stamps have gone through the roof. Now, I want to be clear. Christians have a heart to help people, but not people who won't help themselves. If people can't help themselves, we should certainly help them. But people who won't help themselves, we need to just let them get really hungry. You'll be shocked at how energetic they get on about the 3rd day with nothing to eat. They're going to go find some kind of a job. If it's raking their neighbor's lawn or doing something else, painting their neighbor's house, all of a sudden they're going to get very innovative and energized because they're hungry. The Apostle Paul knew human nature. He said, if you don't work, you can't eat. Now, if you're crippled and can't work, most of us as Christians will line up to help you. But don't you even like to see a person who's handicapped that takes their inabilities and makes the most of them? Now, let me caution you. Look at our hearts. If all these things I'm saying to you today, I'm saying because I'm stingy and I don't like to give, then I've got a problem. But if a person is willing to take when they could do for themselves, they've got a terrible problem. So the Apostle Paul said, I wrote to you that if any would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear that there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. Okay, so does the Bible teach that Christians should be socialists? No. I know that's what Pope Francis believes, but he needs to read his Bible, because that's not what the Bible teaches. Listen, as soon as we come back, we're going to be taking your phone calls. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-ENDTIME, 877-363-8463. Before we pause, though, I'd like to talk to each one of you. It's summertime. Traditionally in Christian ministries, people get busy, going on vacation, doing other things, and sometimes they forget to support the people who are on the air every day, teaching, preaching, spreading the gospel. Well, that's sort of happening right now at Endtime Ministries. We have no complaints. Our partners are wonderful. Yet, we will let you know there are some special needs right now due to summer slump. So if you're out there and God's blessed you where you can, do something extra special to support Endtime Ministries at this present time. We would appreciate it very much. It would help so much. The number to call to do that is 1-800-ENDTIME, or you can go to endtime.com to donate. Please remember us today, and we appreciate it very much.
Rada cut to the chase. Our stated purpose will be to save the world from global warming, polluted water, and contaminated air. However, she continued, our real goal is to form a world government founded on the principles of democratic socialism. Morris smiled at her candor. Rada, he said, this room is one of the few places in the world that you could make that statement without creating an anti-world government revolution. All of us must be very discreet about what we say and to whom we speak. The politically correct phrase that we will use from now on will be global governance. But Morris, Rada protested, do you think a slight change in wording could make that much difference? Let's face it, it's only a matter of semantics. I know, Rada, but when leading the masses, perception is everything. Patriotism is one of the most deeply held emotions in the heart of mankind. People will proudly send their sons to die in a war that they don't even understand, all for the love of their country. We will need to enlist every journalist and every newscaster sympathetic to our cause to help sell our message, which will have to be clearly defined.
To order the novel Dark Intentions, written by Irvin Baxter, call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archives button.
We are taking your phone calls in this segment. The number to call is 877-END-TIME to reach our operators. To donate to Endtime Ministries, that number is 1-800-END-TIME. Let's go right now to the phones. We're going to Louisiana. Jay is calling. Hello, Jay.
Hello?
What's on your mind, Jay?
I was just calling. I had heard that the one of the head people over the prayer groups for the United Nations was a United Pentecostal minister. Is that true?
No, I know what you're thinking of. There's a friend of mine who was invited to the UN. A woman came to his church from the United Nations She was visiting in his town up in Michigan, and she came to his church and received healing. She had a terrible disease, and God healed her in the service that night. Consequently, she invited him to then come to the United Nations and to teach Bible studies up there. He has been doing that, and it's spread and become fairly well received up there. I'm sure that's what you're thinking of.
Okay, and one more thing is we're going to be seeing you Saturday and Sunday when you're in Shreveport. I've seen you several times before, and Roy Wells, I think he went to Israel with you, is going to try to be there. But what we would like to do is, could we take you and Brother Daniels out to eat at Shane's Seafood in Shreveport Sunday after the 2 o'clock session?
I'll tell you what, Jay, you need to talk to Pastor Daniels about that. If he's for it, I'd be glad to do that. So,
Good, great. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you need to talk to him, and as long as he doesn't have other arrangements made, that would be fine with me.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it very much, Jay. Let's go now to right here in Texas. Dave is calling. Hello, Dave.
Irving, answer me this and for our audience. I know you talked about this topic before because you know very well the St. Malachi prophecy. St. Malachi, Catholic Church, gave that prophecy in 1100-something A.D., and he said there would be a number of popes, starting with the one he was under as number one. Which pope is this Pope Francis? What number is he, according to that prophecy? I know you've said it before, but I want you to verify it to me because I've got another ministry that says something different.
Yeah, what happened was when this particular Catholic prelate, I'm trying to recall his name right now, maybe you can help me with that. I'll remember it in just a moment. Nevertheless, he was an Archbishop of Malá in Northern Ireland, and he had a vision when he was visiting Rome, he claimed, and he saw all the popes that would exist from his time until the last pope. And in this vision, there were 112 of them from his time. Actually, his name was Archbishop Malachi. It was Malachi, that's it. And he said that from that time until the last pope would be 112 popes. Now, a lot of people believe that this is that 112th pope. However, there's some disagreement on it because between Malachi and now, there were a few times that there were two popes. There was competition, and one faction supported one as pope, and another faction supported the other as pope. And consequently, we don't know for certain whether this one is number 12 or not. The provincial wisdom is that this is number 112. Now, here's what Malachi said about it. He said that during the time of the 112th pope, he would be the last pope, that Rome would be destroyed, and that God would judge the Roman Catholic people. Now, that's what he said. He was an archbishop of the Catholic Church when he gave this out. So, and a lot of people are wondering, well, then could this pope, since this pope is making such huge waves, and since he is a Marxist and he is a Jesuit, could this pope be the last one? Well, the only problem is the last pope is going to fill the role of the false prophet. And the false prophet is going to be co-ruler with the Antichrist, using his influence to convince the world to follow the Antichrist. We know that we have at least 7 years and possibly 8 years or 9 or 10 until the end of the reign of the Antichrist. Since Pope Francis is now 79, if it's 8 years even, he would then be 87 by the time the reign of the Pope was over, which sounds pretty old for him to be able to function as the false prophet. Now, there are many popes that have stayed in there until that age. So I can't tell you for sure. But anyway, that's what I know about it, Dave.
They said that this Pope, he looks pretty young to me when you look at this Pope in the face, and pretty much have a livelihood spirit about him. So I could see him going on and on, really. But But what this Pope comes out saying, like he equated the terrorists to the everyday Catholic in one of his most recent pronouncements. And how can you do that? I mean, and call yourself a Pope, equating your mainline Catholics no better than the terrorists of Islam.
You know, David, when you realize what he's trying to do, everything makes sense. Because he's doing the same thing that President Obama is doing.
Exactly. I think they're paired up. Personally, I think both of them are running in pairs.
Well, he's trying to say that Muslims are peaceful and that the Islamic religion is a peaceful religion. And President Obama's got a lot of criticism because he won't even say the words radical Islamic terrorism. He will not use that term because he wants to say that these terrorists are an aberration, that they do not represent the Islamic people, that Islam is a religion of peace. However, after you get to your 500th terrorist attack, and almost everyone, if not every single one, is a Muslim, you have to stop and ask, what is there about the Muslim religion that is continually producing this kind of behavior? You've got to ask yourself that question, and that's what they're unwilling to do. And of course, I understand President Obama because his dad was a Muslim and he's enamored with his father. He named his book Dreams of My Fathers. He dreamed of having a father, which he never had. His dad went off and left him when he was 2 years of age. And so consequently, it's a very tender place in President Obama's life, and I understand how that could be. But it seems like that's caused him to suspend good judgment and not see things as they really are. But
they call evil good and good evil, just like the Bible said they would.
Yeah, well, the other thing is this, David. They want to bring about a one-world religion of peace. And if they condemn Islam, that means they got to get rid of Islam. And they don't want to do that.
Man's parts.
They want to bring it all together, and that's what they're hoping to do. So they're saying that all this terrorism is an aberration, that it does not come from the teachings of Islam. The fact is, it is not an aberration because they teach their people to worship death. I mean, I've read their literature over and over and over and over. They teach. Matter of fact, I have an article in front of me right now, and I want to take time for this article, David. Thank you very much for your wonderful contribution to our program today. Let me let you go because I want to shift to this article that I had highlighted for this program today. It comes from Israel National News, today's edition. Netanyahu says, "I'm shaken to the core of my being." Here's what he said. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took time today, that's Wednesday today, to address the video that shows a Palestinian father asking Israeli border police to shoot his son. "I've just watched a video that shook me to the core of my being. In just a few seconds, it shows why our conflict persists," opened the Prime Minister. A Palestinian father holds up his 4-year-old son. He pleads with the Israeli border police to kill his child. He shouts, "Shoot this little boy," his boy. He pushes his young son forward toward the soldiers and screams, "Kill him, shoot him." The boy pauses. He is scared. Any child would be. He turns back, looking at his father for guidance. With his shirt tightly tucked into his bright red shorts, the boy ambles forward towards the soldiers. One of them extends his hand in friendship. The boy gives him a high five. It's hard to make a 4-year-old hate, Netanyahu then turned to address the parents of the world, urging them to think of their own children in this child's place. Imagine your own child at that age. Think of his smile. Imagine her laugh. Picture the unrestrained joy and innocence that only a child possesses, encouraging someone to murder a child, let alone your own child, is probably the most inhumane thing a person can do. What did this child do to deserve this? The answer is nothing. He is innocent. He should be in a playground. He should be in the sun laughing with other children. Sadly, his father's crime is not an isolated example. In Gaza, Hamas runs summer camps that teach children to value death over life. Suicide kindergarten camps. Even Yasser Arafat stated, "We Muslims value death. You Christians value life. We value death." And Yasser Arafat said, "I hope I can die as a martyr." And within the last couple of years, they actually exhumed his body, the Muslims did, trying to prove that the Israelis poisoned him so that they could label him a martyr, because traditionally martyrs go straight to paradise where they enjoy the attention of 72 dark-eyed virgins and they immediately have eternal salvation. That's what they believe. If you die for the cause of Allah, you're called a shahid. And I've seen many videotapes made by mothers rejoicing as they send their boy off, their 15-year-old boy, off to commit suicide, to be a suicide bomber, to try to kill Jewish people. I mean, it is incredible. It's beyond the pale. Okay, tell you what, if you're on the hold right now, stay right there. We're very close to our next break, and I do not want to bring you on and then have to cut you off quickly. So let me pause just a moment and say to all of you out there, I will be in Shreveport, Louisiana. I will be there this coming Saturday and Sunday. It will be Saturday evening at 6 o'clock. That's August the 6th. That will be at the Calvary Pentecostal Church, 6811 Woolworth Road in Shreveport. I will be speaking on America's God-given destiny. This lesson is so critical, especially in light of the present presidential election. I'm going to be telling you what is going to happen to America according to the Bible. Will we become a part of the one world government that's right now emerging under the process called globalism? Will the mark of the beast ever be implemented here in the United States of America? Will we stay friends to Israel, or will we forsake Israel? All those questions are answered in the Bible. So be with me this coming Saturday night, 6 p.m., also Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. I will be at the Calvary Pentecostal Church, 6811 Woolworth Road in Shreveport, Louisiana. On Sunday afternoon, we'll have question and answers after the session. You won't want to miss it. In March 2000, I was leading our annual prophecy tour to Israel. We had made the decision to stop by the United Nations before leaving the United States. After taking the tour of the UN, there was a man who was going to give our group a briefing. And here's what he said to us. He said, now some people think that the United Nations is a world government. He said, it's nothing like that. He said, the UN is involved in global governance. And I was stunned when he said it. And I just couldn't resist. I felt like I had to ask the man without abusing him, without taking advantage of him. And so I asked him, sir, could you explain to us the difference between global governance and global government? He stopped and he swallowed a couple of times and he said, you know, that may not be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be easy because I'd already looked it up in Webster's Third International Dictionary. It has a one-word definition. The word governance means government.
To find out more about our DVDs on world government, call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com.
October 27th through November the 7th, 12 amazing days. We're going to be in Israel. I want to invite you to go along. Judy and I would love to have you. We'll be with you every step of the way. We'll have breakfast, dinner, and supper together. Also, we'll be on the buses with you. We will have on-site prophecy lessons. We'll be on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus is coming back to I'll teach you exactly what's going to happen there. Read straight from the Bible what's going to happen there. You're going to stand on the Temple Mount where the third temple will be built in the very near future. You are going to see all of the furniture that's prepared now for the rebuilding of the third temple and the resumption of temple worship, just like the Bible prophesies. It's ready. You're going to see it with your own eyes. You won't see replicas. You're going to see the very thing. So it's just going to be amazing. Plus, we'll be baptizing in the Jordan River. Always an incredible experience for all of those who would choose to be baptized there. We're going to go on a boat ride on the Jesus boat on the Sea of Galilee. Always an incredible highlight. You're going to stand at Megiddo overlooking the plain of Megiddo where the Battle of Armageddon will begin in the not too distant future. You're going to see where the Battle of Armageddon will end. You're going to go to Bethlehem and you're going to look over the shepherd's fields where David kept sheep. He kept his flock there, where he killed the lion, where he killed the bear. I mean, there's no trip like it in the whole world. But with our tour, you don't just get a tour of Israel, you also get a prophecy tour. So you not only will study the history, walk in the footsteps of Jesus and his disciples and all the prophets, but beyond that, we're going to take you into the future, what's going to happen from now to the Battle of Armageddon. And well, all I can tell you is it is, in fact, the trip of a lifetime. If you want to go, pick up the phone and call us right now. The number to call is 800-END-TIME. Our folks are standing by right now to answer your question. Just ask to speak to someone about the tour. Now, it's not too late, but we're getting close to our deadline, so do not wait. You need to set things in motion right now. You still got time, but we don't need to wait. So call us right now, 800-END-TIME. Even if you're not sure you can go, but you want to inquire about it, pick up the phone and call us, 1-800-END-TIME. I'm getting homesick for Israel once again. I've been 27 times, but I'm getting ready to go back again. Now, here's the burning question. Is it safe? It's a lot safer than staying here in the U.S. I'll just tell you, in the last 30 years, there's probably been 50 million people take a tour to Israel. Number of fatalities out of those 50 million? 0. I'm talking about on an organized tour. Now, if you go over there and rent a car and you don't know what you're doing and you drive off to Ramallah or somewhere like that, I can't guarantee you what will happen. We're not doing that. We know what we're doing. We've got trained, licensed guides, trained, licensed drivers. And let me tell you, during the height of the latest uprising in Israel, over the last 6 months, I think they had about 30 fatalities, and all of them, I think, were Jewish people. 30 fatalities in 6 months. During that same 6 months, Chicago had 350 fatalities. I mean, it's 6 times as safe in Israel as it is in Chicago. And for Americans, it's totally safe for all of us. So don't let that stop you. I know that the media plays up every little incident that happens, but everything is good there. You'll have a wonderful time. I wouldn't be going if it wasn't safe. I wouldn't be taking other people if I didn't know that it was safe. So give us a call right now, 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. We do have open lines, and so the number to call to be on the air with me is 877-END-TIME. Right now, let's go back to the phones from California. Ralph is calling. Hello, Ralph.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I was just calling in response to some of your early comments about socialism and capitalism, and I called a number of months ago, and I feel compelled to revisit the issue. And there is a profound disservice being done to the populations of the world to promulgate one system above another. All of the systems of this world, as they are being practiced by humans, are evil and found in wickedness. There is as much strife and wickedness and avarice and backbiting in capitalism as there ever has been in socialism. And to say that God doesn't preach socialism is erroneous in my opinion. If you look at Acts 2 and Acts 4, Acts 2 said, and sold their possessions and goods and parted them to all men as every man had need, and and they continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house did eat their meat with gladness and singleness of heart. That is a socialistic system. And I understand about they did it voluntarily, and at some, the initiates probably did initiate that voluntarily out of the love of their heart, but it became an engendered system. If you look at Acts 4, just 2 chapters over, it said everyone sold everything they had and put it in one pot, and then it was distributed as people had need. And I'm not preaching socialism. I'm a capitalist by heart. But as socialism is practiced, it is wicked. But so is capitalism. When you worship at the shrine of Wall Street, the bankers are the apostles. You know, it's fleshly. It's not godly. God says to seek the kingdom of heaven, not the systems of man. And the only true system that's going to be, in the final analysis, victorious and of God is a dictatorship by an altruistic dictator, the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm sorry for being long-winded.
Well, Ralph, actually, I agree with you. Now, maybe it didn't come across in my initial comments, but capitalism without Christianity, without true Christianity, can be very evil. If capitalists are just out for themselves and don't love their fellow man, then capitalism can be a very cruel system. When we talk about free enterprise, I think all of us are free for freedom, and socialism is not free enterprise. It is taking away our goods by force. So we're all for freedom. The Bible says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. At the same time, your point is well taken that any system outside of true Christianity has a lot of evil built into it. I would rather live under free enterprise, though, than I would under socialism, because in order for socialism to work, they have to, actually socialism is defined as the government owning the means of production, whether they own it directly or whether they so regulate all businesses that they are the virtual owners and they merely let the owners appear to be owners. And that's sort of where we're moving right now. The taxes have become so heavy and the regulations are so extensive that that's sort of the way we're going. It's like if you own a house now, you don't really own it because you'll pay property taxes on it all the rest of your life. Even if you pay it off, you still got to pay $500 a month or $1,000 a month rent, depending on what your property taxes are. That's another phase of socialism. But anyway, I actually agree with what you're saying, Ralph. Perhaps I did not fully explain at the beginning.
Yes, sir. And under free enterprise, if you look at the free enterprise system, and that is my heart because that's the way I was brought up and that's what I love. But, you've got a small percentile of the population of the country owning something like 93% of the wealth, and that's free enterprise. That is not under socialism. I'm not pointing out any individuals, but Secretary Clinton, when she was Secretary of State, she somehow increased her wealth by $120 million. Now, unless she was a part-time secretary, I don't see how that's even possible or conceivable. And you could talk about Bill Bennett, who has given away millions of dollars preaching virtue, and at the same time he's a gambling-aholic, and I'm not picking him or singling him out, but all the systems are evil. Everybody that comes out of office, they stuff their pockets and make sweetheart deals, and it's the same thing in socialism. I'm not talking about one system over another as they're practiced.
The bottom line is whatever system we live under, our overriding allegiance should be Christianity.
Yes, sir.
Now, as far as there in the book of Acts where you quoted, like you mentioned, that was voluntary. And there were some people who, because everybody else was doing it, they felt like they should do it in order to sort of keep up with the Joneses, Ananias and Sapphira. And they lied about it and said they were doing it when they didn't want to do it. They gave part of what they gained from the sale of a piece of property and kept the rest.
Yes.
And they were they were killed on the spot. But the Apostle Peter said this, why did you lie? It was yours. You didn't have to give it. But why did you lie? Since you lied to the Holy Ghost, then you're going to be dead. And so that's what happened. So, but you're absolutely right. You know, if we're truly Christian, let's say you're a business owner, you got to look out for your employees. If you take huge wealth and you starve people to death, that's not Christian. Now, a business owner that founds a business, works day and night, he probably should make more than his employees. But when it becomes extorted, when it becomes drastic, well, any business owner has got to answer to himself, am I treating my people fairly like I would want to be treated? And I think that that's what the heart of what you're saying really is.
Yes, sir. And I applaud you and thank you for your heart's effort to seek to accurately establish righteous positions. And thank you so much.
Okay, well, Ralph, I thank you for calling, and thank you for adding some needed commentary to my statement, because sometimes when we make statements, when we say one thing emphasizing something, we can be misunderstood on the other side, and it is important for us to communicate clearly. America would be such a great place if it were fully Christian, and it appears that we had a stronger Christian influence back before World War I and even before World War II than we have today. Here today, we have one person who is strongly embracing free enterprise, another person who's pushing socialism. You can't really say that either one of them would be doing everything in a totally Christian-like manner. And so that's not something that we would be able to say. But all of us as individuals, we could start where we are. If you own a business, then conduct it like a Christian business. Look out for your employers or your employees. If you work in a business or work in a factory, look out for your employee. If you work 8 hours, but only really put in 4 hours work because you're not being diligent, then really you're stealing. You shouldn't do that. And so it's a two-way street. If you're a business owner, then you should be sincere to help your employees. If you're a work person there, you should be sincere and help your employer. Christianity really makes things work wonderful. Once again, I'd like to ask all of you, if you're not yet a partner with Endtime Ministries, we need you. Time is running out. The summertime is the lean time for us. We need some special help right now. If you'd like to do that, please consider a special donation here during the summertime. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Listen, you're wonderful. We love you very much. Thank you. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.